Welcome to the February edition of the Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot Breakdown. While we are a month and a half into the Ultimate Coliseum expansion, the meta is constantly evolving. Archetypes come and go, and decks evolve in order to adapt to the ever-changing meta on a weekly basis. For hardcore Shadowverse players who follow the meta closely, this shapes one of the more interesting months we've had in a while. This meta as a whole has a wide variety of decent decks which are skill intensive and have their own distinct playstyles, each of them with at least one very bad matchup. A common trait among top tier decks in this expansion is the ability to pursue two different game plans, an aggressive one and a slower board or combo centric one. For example, Control Force can go for a relatively fast Whirlwind Rhinoceros win condition, or lean more towards a slower, more value-driven game plan. This is done via mulligan choices and other decisions made during a match. The popularity of Spell Boost Ruin demands an answer, and Control Force is able to produce them. This Meta Snapshot Breakdown will provide an overview of the top decks, but check out the full Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot linked in the description below for a complete analysis of the Ultimate Coliseum meta, including deck lists. Our website now includes a deck builder, where you can build your decks and transfer them by code to the game. For more Meta Snapshot breakdowns, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's take a look at how each challenger is holding up in the Ultimate Coliseum. Spell Boost Ruin takes the top spot of this month's tier list. As the most popular deck, it shapes the meta by boosting the popularity of counters such as Forestcraft, and causing other decks to adopt a more aggressive game plan like Natural Dragon. While Spell Boost Ruin may not have the best matchups in the current meta, it is an extremely affordable deck, has insane high roll potential, and is fun to play, at least for the person piloting the deck. This deck can be deceptively simple, but a lot of micro decisions have to be made in order to optimize the usage and play order of cards. As a well-rounded deck with great overall matchups, Control Forest has gained popularity and finds itself climbing up to a number 2 slot this month. In fact, as seen in recent Shadowverse Open events, top competitors often choose to ban Control Forest over Spell Boost Ruin. Control Forest is an ever-changing deck. Recent additions including Zeus the Supreme for long games, Ghastly Treant for Nadarin Great Tree Generation, and Ward of Unkilling as an effective draw engine and a stall card against burst damage. Keep in mind that this deck can either go for a fast combo roach game plan or a long drawn-out control-oriented strategy. Finally, Mid-Range Shadow chose to go for a slower game plan with the inclusion of Ceres, Eternal Bride, but this also makes the deck vulnerable to Control Forest. This has led to Mid-Range Shadow dropping to the bottom of Tier 1. It is still quite a strong deck, finding itself part of the lineup in recent JCG Open tournaments, and having a favorable matchup against the recently trending deck, Aggro Forest. Going into Tier 2, a general rule of thumb in card games is that the control deck should beat the aggro deck, especially when they are archetypes of the same class. This does not apply to Aggro Forest, which has an overwhelming win rate against Control Forest. Given the rise of Control Forest and Aggro Forest aggressiveness overpowering slower decks such as Spell Boost Ruin and Natural Dragon, Aggro Forest finds itself at the top of Tier 2. Natural Dragon falls behind Aggro Forest in Tier 2. With the inclusion of Marion, Elegant Dragon Newt, and Ice Dancing Dragon Newt, Natural Dragon is adopting a more aggressive game plan in order to combat Spell Boost Ruin. Overall, it is a relatively safe deck to play, and shares similar matchups as Control Forest, including its glaring weakness against Aggro Forest. Hidden in the middle of Tier 2 are Mid-Range Sword and Ambush Sword, with the former having a more rounded range of matchups, and the latter with a more polarized range that specifically target Runecraft and Dragoncraft. The bloom of Control Forest throws a wrench into Ambush Sword's dependence on countering Spell Boost Ruin to remain relevant, with May, Eager Elf, eagerly sniping any ambush followers. Ilana Haven and Natural Ruin lurk in the bottom of Tier 2. Ilana Haven may likely be another fad, an experiment to counter other counter decks such as Aggro Forest and Ambush Sword. Natural Ruin may have extremely unfavorable matchups against Spell Boost Ruin and fast decks, but it possesses very favorable matchups against Control Forest and Mid-Range Shadow, two other Tier 1 decks which give this deck success in the Shadowverse Open, where a ban can be used to avoid such unfavorable yet popular matchups. The Ultimate Coliseum fostered a fairly diverse rotation format experience. While the cyclical nature of the meta gives every deck a purpose and a clear counter, two decks stand out from the rest of the pack: Control Forest and Natural Dragon. They are well-rounded decks with favorable or even matchups against the wide spectrum of decks in the current meta. Statistically, they share very similar strengths and weaknesses, with Control Forest having more advantageous matchups and a very favorable matchup against Ambush Sword, which is still a viable deck against anything not Forestcraft. Playing Control Forest does not come without drawbacks though. The deck is arguably one of the most complicated archetypes in the current meta and requires a deep understanding of every matchup, as well as a keen game sense to play optimally. For those who are looking for a quick and effective deck against a popular spell boost Ruin and rising Control Forest, look no further than Aggro Forest. Lastly, Control Forest and Aggro Forest benefit from each other's popularity by forcing opponents to mulligan against one or the other. An opponent can pick cards for an opening game plan against the high-octane Aggro Forest and the imminent late-game power of Control Forest. Making the wrong blind pick will benefit either deck, though countering Aggro Forest's explosive openers should be a greater priority. In conclusion, and as expected, no cards were nerfed in the January balance patch, and Bloodcraft got a bit of love. However, the patch has little to no effect on the meta as a whole. This at least tells us that Cygames acknowledges the weak state of Bloodcraft in the current meta. With the mini expansion on the horizon, perhaps Bloodcraft and Portalcraft will gain additional tools. It is within reasonable expectation for Cygames to complete the Princess Connect collaboration and give both classes their missing Union Burst cards, potentially giving each the boost they need to become more viable meta contenders. Other than that, not much is expected out of the mini expansion given the current volatile state of the game. Please look forward to reveals leading to the mini expansion at the end of the month, including an exclusive one that will appear on this Saturday's Buddy System event. For now, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the latest Tempo Storm news and Shadowverse content, and to catch the next Meta Snapshot featuring the post-patch meta as early as possible. Thanks for watching.